What's up, Steelers fans? Welcome back to Around the Burgh. I'm your host, Mitchell Wolf, here with our Week 9 preview of the Steelers matchup against the Chicago Bears on Monday night. Before we get into everything, I'll introduce my co-host, Shane Kubis. Shane, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. Definitely looking forward to watching a game that isn't the one that's on right now. If we're recording Thursday night, and Colts and Jets are the Colts and Jets, so that's
I saw
fun.
that
So
Josh Johnson is in now, which is very
Y-
exciting.
yeah, I mean, I don't know what the point of. I mean, maybe Joe Flacco is not elite enough yet in practice, so he has to wait. But
This implies that Joe Flacco was ever elite.
right. I mean, yeah, we can get into that another day, but yeah.
Yeah. But we'll get into some of the news from the week first, and we'll try to keep it. Well, maybe we won't. We were going to try to keep it Steelers specific, but this was but the
Yeah,
week the NFL blew up in terms of just wild amounts of news.
yeah.
But like I said, we'll keep the Steelers rated for now. So the Steelers did end up trading Melvin Ingram to the Kansas
hmm
City Chiefs for a sixth-round pick after he, didn't play against the Browns, and he's apparently going to play this week because his groin injury magically healed.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. I guess it just depends on how things are moving down there. I guess, but.
Yeah. Uh-huh. But I think we were talking about this pre-show, and it seemed like just not many people were super interested in him. Like, I think he only had one sack, and he had a good pressure rate, but he's obviously a 32-year-old defensive end who's somewhat limited. But the Steelers were trying. I think and I think a lot of the coaches talked about it. Like we both had expectations. I think he
Yeah.
thought he was playing well enough to start, and we just didn't feel that way, and that's where the screaming came, and that's why we had to make the move.
And I think it comes down to like early in the season when he had more opportunities just because we
Hmm.
were dealing with injuries at the position. And he did have a really good week one against the Bills, and he followed that
Hmm.
up with a couple good games. But Highsmith was clearly outplaying him when he was on the
Hmm.
field, when he was healthy. And if he doesn't want to have a true backup role, which again I don't think he was expecting to have based on his reaction to this,
Yeah.
then he's not gonna play enough unless someone gets hurt where he's gonna be happy with his snaps, I guess. And that's what
Yeah.
it's
Which
not there.
Yeah, which like again, we kind of talked about this, but it's like if you, I mean, I don't know what they told you. Like maybe they told him he had a chance to really win the starting job, but
Maybe they thought so too. I mean, obviously Highsmith is only a second year player, so maybe they were thinking, well, maybe Ingram will be able to take over that role and they can move him along slower. But clearly, Highsmith just has outplayed him and needs to be on the field if he's healthy. So, like you said, it's going to end up being a share of time at the best for him, and at the worst, he's going to be sitting on the bench most of the game.
right. And so
So,
in response, the Steelers elevated Taco Charlton to the active roster,
Taco,
Taco Thursday. So
yes, there you
you know,
go.
Mike Tomlin said he was impressed by what Taco did against the Browns. So I think we'll see him a little bit. Which again, we talked about this when they brought him on the practice squad. He doesn't necessarily fit the scheme, but he made some decent plays. And I'm sure they'll use him they might use him as kind of a down lineman on passing downs, which could be
Yeah,
interesting.
I think that's
Uh,
what we'll see a lot of him as probably. So,
yeah, so that'll be cool to see how that goes. So we talked about this I think during the bye week, and how the Steelers might be looking to trade for a defensive tackle. And I think multiple NFL reporters reported that Steelers were looking around to try to find one. Didn't end up happening. It was a pretty boring trade
yeah,
deadline
not
at
much
the
happening.
deadline. The Von Miller trade to the Rams was obviously big, but that was the day before.
Yeah,
But yeah, no big trade for a defensive tackle. But they did sign Carlos Davis's brother Khalil.
yeah.
So the Steelers now have three sets of brothers on the team, with the Edmondses and the Watts and now the Davises, which is I haven't done the research, but I can't imagine another team, at least in the modern era of the NFL, has had
Yeah,
three
so
sets
I
of
can see
brothers.
maybe back in the day, like maybe if it wasn't even all the time, but like had a
When
bunch of
Joe Bob and Jim Smith walked down to the steel mill.
exactly right. Like outside of that era, I can't imagine there's been at least more than
The
this,
three
right?
brothers are matriculating the ball down the field.
Isn't it so funny some of the way the announcers because
The
you could tell
transit,
like you
what is it?
can
I think it's like the transatlantic accent was like the way
exactly.
everybody talked back then, which is wild. But
It's really weird, yeah.
yeah,
But
but yeah, so that'll be interesting. I'm not. I mean, obviously Carlos is on IR. I think they'll just kind of need a body on the defensive line for the practice squad.
right now,
So
yeah.
yeah, so that's fun. And then the other practice squad addition is Josh Lambo, who was recently the Jaguars kicker and a pretty good kicker, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
for a long time. He really started struggling recently, and that's why I ended up without a job. But assuming he's if there's something going on with him, maybe that he's figured that out. But definitely hoping that he's just a practice squad addition and he doesn't have to get elevated.
For sure. And I mean, so Boswell, I think either was limited or missed practice today with concussion. But he's got some extra time, given that the game is Monday. So I think they're hopeful that he could play. But,
Yeah.
bring in Lambo as insurance just in case. And obviously, the Steelers have a bit of a dubious history with bringing in Jaguars kickers with
Yeah.
Josh Scobie. I think that was
Scobie.
2015, right?
I think 15 or 16, one of the
I
two.
think it was 15 because that was
Yeah.
because like Michael Vick played and Josh Scobie
Oh,
was the
right.
kicker, and it was a wild year.
It was a mess. Yeah, it was an absolute
Yeah.
mess.
Yeah. So then that's pretty much it for the Steelers news we've got this week. In terms of other like AFC North stuff, Odell Beckham is being shut down by the Browns. They didn't trade him. His dad posted a
Very
a
specific,
mixtape video to
which
Everybody Hurts.
which I think I just want to say this. There's no chance his father actually made that video. It just he posted it on
I
his
saw a tweet
social
that said
media.
like even if he didn't make it, whoever put it in the wrong orientation, that was great like cover because like a dad or an old person would obviously have the
I
orientation of
think
the
that
video
was. I
wrong.
want to say that was Mina Kimes that
Yeah, I
said
think it
that
was her. Yeah,
because I could see her saying that. I'm pretty sure
yeah,
that's who that was. But yeah,
yeah,
it was like this weird combination of like I don't think he could have possibly made this, but also like yeah, I mean maybe he took the time. He's like maybe he's had this in his pocket.
yeah. That's
Maybe
he
he's
just
been ready to go.
he just fires up Premiere every week. It's like, all
Right.
right,
He's like,
time
all
to
right,
cut up the film.
let's see how many can I find this week. All right, all right. Odell, do I clear? Am I good to send this? All right, let's go.
And then
So
like LeBron was tweeting to like free Odell.
that's
Like,
right.
I mean, the
Uh,
Browns is the Browns. Like this is like vintage Browns stuff
it
right
is, and I
now.
wasn't expect. I mean, I expected there to be struggles with Odell. Like, I just, for whatever reason, I think Odell can still play. I just think that this team and him do not work. Him and
Hmm.
Baker do not work, and I'm really surprised. I guess it was probably just because teams knew that the Browns had no leverage in the situation that they
Hmm.
weren't willing to trade anything for Odell in case he really can't get it done anymore. But I mean, just watching games I have, and even last week, like there's times where I feel like big plays are there with him,
Yeah, definitely.
and it just isn't happening with Baker right now.
Yeah.
So
The thing that I think I heard this on the Athletic Football Show. They were saying that like Odell is like obviously like so great at running like quick slants and in
yeah,
breaking routes, whereas Baker likes more out breaking routes
he
and like the
does. Yeah.
ability to like see the route instead of like anticipating it. So that's a big part of why there's kind of been that disconnect. But I mean, so I was talking about this with my friend, and I was like, where do you, if you had to like say like Odell is wide receiver X in terms of like rank in the NFL, like where do you think he is right now?
It's so hard because like if you just watch him play, I feel like it's hard to put him very far outside of the top 10. Like watch him actually out on the field and run his
Hmm.
routes and play. And then you have to factor in obviously the production, but how much of that is on Baker? And right now it seems like a lot of it is just the fit between them. I think if you put him like if I was picking a receiver and I had to start a team, right?
Hmm.
Like I don't know who anyone else is going to be. I'm just picking players to start with.
Hmm.
He wouldn't make it past probably 11 or 12 for me because
I was
I still think like he has the talent level there.
in the way that I worked it out, he was like he was like a right at round 20 actually. But
Yeah, like I understand
but
that
like I
too.
think you could
Like
go up to maybe like 15. Because like another one like Julio, like kind of like Julio's been hurt a lot, but like
yeah,
if he's
it's
healthy, he's
he's
incredible.
still great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So like
That's my whole
guys like
thing with Odell is like I think that before he ended up on the Browns, whenever he was healthy, I
mhm.
thought of him as a top 5ish receiver.
Right,
So
exactly.
to me, because there hasn't been that much actual time
Hmm.
and he's still a younger player, I
Yeah,
feel like assuming he's healthy, he would still be in that 10 to 15 range, like you said, the high point for sure. And it just comes down to like, do you think that the biggest problem is Baker and the way that Baker plays? And I think that is the case at this point.
for sure. Yeah,
So
I still think like he's again one of definitely the better wide receivers, but I think he's kind of at least 2 tiers below where he was
there's a
like at
lot of guys too that have elevated themselves since he was last at
exact
that level
that is
too.
true. Yeah, but like because like you think about guys like Nuke and God, Stephon Diggs,
Devontae Adams,
Devontae Adams, yeah. So
just
like
name a
guys like
few.
that who are, but yeah, he's nowhere near that category. But
At this point, no, not anymore.
anyways, so we'll move on to previewing the Bears now. So Bears have had a bit of a rough season, but that
Weird
was
season
that
for
was to
sure.
be
Yeah,
expected.
yeah,
So obviously they, were going to go with Andy Dalton, and then they decided to switch Justin Fields once Andy Dalton got hurt, and they were going to go back to Andy Dalton. And then they decided to stick with Fields, which was probably the right choice.
yeah.
So, you know, that's good to see for them. Fields is having a decent rookie season, I would say. They're sitting at 3-5 right now. Um, and he doesn't have a ton of help in terms of the offensive line. The receivers are decent. The running back is Khalil Herbert's filling in very nicely for David
Yeah, he
Montgomery.
has been, yeah.
Like, so I think you were a pretty big Fields fan coming out, right?
Yeah, for me, the thing with Fields that I liked is when you go back and you watch, like, because I watched a lot of his last year, especially
Mhm,
because like what I saw before that, I saw a guy who hadn't put it all together as a passer yet. I didn't feel like, and I wanted to see because I saw all the athletic ability, the pure arm talent, but like I hadn't seen him put together from making certain throws. And his last year was one of the most accurate quarterbacks I've seen in college. Like
mhm,
he was just on point all over the field, and I felt like if you get him in a situation where he can have a chance to learn the offense, what they expect from him, get rapport with his receivers. If they can get open, he's going to be able to hit them in stride. And it seems like so far, and I feel like Nagy's a lot of this personally.
mhm.
I just feel like he has to go, in my
Yeah,
opinion. Like no matter what happens, like unless they just go on a tear and Fields is throwing the ball well
mhm.
and he's getting acclimated to how he wants the passing game to be, you could tell that Phil just isn't comfortable with it. And part of that's definitely him, but Nagy needs to understand too. Like he wasn't in his corner, you could tell at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's carried into the play calling and the way he's kind of formulated the game plan.
Yeah, it's so weird because, they make this big move up to trade up for him and,
Right.
obviously, like, going into the draft, like, Nagy and, Pace were, like, very much on the hot seat, and,
Yeah, for
you
sure.
trade up to get this quarterback basically to save your job, to say, like, "Hey, like, we drafted this quarterback and, like, we're gonna develop him," so, like, and I get there I think we've talked about this, but there is that argument about, like, do you play the new quarterback immediately? Do you sit him? Like, can you ruin him? Or, like, will he benefit from sitting? And I think there's enough examples on every side of the argument that there isn't really a good answer. I think it's just a case by case thing.
It's really based on the player and the coaching staff. If the coaching staff feels like they can put them in a position where they at least know what to expect and know what they're doing, and the
Mhm,
game is too fast for them, it can work out fine. It's where if you throw them out there and they're clearly not ready and you know that and you play
mhm.
them anyway, that's when you can start getting in trouble with, I think, guys, for sure.
Right. But I think a guy like Justin Fields who, is super accurate and is obviously super physically talented, I think that's a guy like you should be comfortable playing early on. And,
Right.
I don't know of how long Matt Nagy is for this job. They seem to new guy who's head coach. I think it's the special teams guy.
Yeah, I think
Who's I think it's
so.
Dave Tube or something, or
Something
it's a
like
special.
that. Yeah.
Anyways, but they have Bill Lazor calling the plays now, and that seems working out a little better. They're kind of calling plays more suited to Fields' skill set, so that's good. But the receiver Darnell Mooney's really putting. I mean, he's like their number one receiver, even with Allen Robinson across from him, which is pretty surprising.
Yeah, like, I really liked what I saw from him as a rookie for sure. He was
Hmm.
one of those guys that, like, if Nick Foles could hit anybody in stride down the field, he might have had 1,000 yards. Like,
Hmm.
everyone's already was joking last year about how he had Jalen Ramsey's lunch money all game, and
Hmm.
he beat him down the field multiple times, he just couldn't hit
Hmm.
him in stride. If he and Fields can get going consistently, that's one of those things, like I said, if he can get open down the field, Fields will hit him down the field. Like, that's not gonna be a concern for that offense at all.
For sure. And then, of course, as everybody knows, the big thing to watch this game, it's the Jesse James revenge game.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, good for him, man. Isn't he wearing, like, 18?
He's wearing eight. That's what he wore
That's
in
what I thought.
college. Yeah,
Is
yeah.
exactly, and I'm like, because I remember in the preseason, I'm like, "Did they say that was Jesse James?"
Hmm.
I'm like, "What the hell?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, he's wearing 18. That's interesting."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, the tight ends wearing the new numbers is kinda weird for me. Like, Kyle Pitts
yeah,
wearing 8, like, I'm just like,
I mean,
I don't
Kyle
know
Pitts
about
wearing
this."
8's kinda cool because he's, like, totally a receiver
It's
hybrid
also
guy.
weird though because, like, he wore 84 in college or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know
Like,
what
I
that
I
was
think
about,
if you
yeah.
wear it in college and then you wear it in the NFL, okay, but I feel like if you make the switch
You're
back or,
just
like,
you're just
back to
doing
high, I'm
it to
like,
do
"What?" I'm
it,
like, "That's
yeah,
kinda weird." But anyways,
yeah.
on defense for the Bears, there's a chance that Khalil Mack might not play. He missed last week. I think he was limited or missed practice this week, so he's, I think, doubtful. Eddie Jackson, their safety, who's quite good, also missed practice this week. So, those are two of their better players on defense that could be out for this game, which at two positions that are extremely important, especially for how the Steelers are trying to run their offense.
Yeah, I think missing Mac would be a huge deal for them just because, like, if you're going to take advantage of the Steelers' tackles, that is the best way to take advantage of the offensive
Hmm.
line at this point.
Hmm.
It's going to be a lot harder, obviously, without one of the best defensive players in the
Yeah.
NFL. Like, having him there would give you the same advantage that the Browns should have had more of last week,
Hmm.
but didn't take as much of advantage as they could have maybe. So
Yeah.
seeing him out would be huge for the pass protection for sure. Like, especially if we want to try to, this might be a good time to try to get if he's good to go. Banner trying to get some more snaps maybe too. We'll have to see what his situation is too.
Right, and it's interesting because Mac, I believe, plays over the right tackle.
Yeah, so
So
like
he'll
that's
yeah, that'd be interesting. Because I mean, Dan Moore could use a break after
yeah.
having to go.
Honestly, if you,
But you see what PFF gave him as a pass blocking
I
grade?
actually didn't get to see it.
0.0,
Okay, well, I
which I
mean,
was like, I don't.
it couldn't
I think
have been that bad
he
if he
allowed
didn't.
four. I think it was 4 pressures, 1 QB hit, and 1 sack, and I was like, okay,
It's
like
that's if that's a zero. I mean, like fine,
I mean,
whatever.
for me, like a 0.0 indicates that you were never there.
You have to be the whoever the hell it was that was across from Adrian
Oh,
Claiborne when he had
Chaz
Chaz
Green,
Green.
Chaz
Chaz
Green,
Green. Yep.
who I believe is on the
That's
Steelers
a zero.
practice squad.
Yeah, that's right. That's a zero. That's
Yeah,
a
that should be
zero.
the 0.
Anything
Uh,
above that's the only thing you should get a zero for. That's
right,
about it.
right. But
You can at
in
least give
I
him a
think
0.5.
right for the rest of the Bears defense, they still have a Keem Hicks who I think he's been a little banged up this year, and he's getting up there, but he was a dominant player relatively recently.
Yeah.
Roquan Smith is an excellent young linebacker. I think he's one of the
Yeah,
most underrated linebackers in the NFL right
he's the one
now.
I'm the most worried about, honestly,
Yeah.
because I could see Ben throwing him a couple
Oh
balls
yeah.
because the way he's already done that this year to guys. It's
That's
like,
why I'm worried. That's why I was worried about Eddie Jackson because like Eddie
yeah,
Jackson fits that mold of like the Reggie Nelsons who
yeah, the
like
guys
always
that pick
give
Ben
Ben
off. Yeah,
issues.
yeah,
And then Jalen Johnson's a good young corner. So,
he is.
but
Yeah.
I think so. We'll go to like kind of the matchups we're looking at, and one of the matchups that I thought would be interesting is basically whoever is the other wide receivers that aren't being covered by Jalen Johnson. Now, I think Ben doesn't really care and he'll throw at wherever, but
Yeah.
I just I think those guys, especially if they can keep Chase Claypool away from Jalen Johnson, those matchups are very intriguing for me. I think those are ones that they could exploit because I'm not even sure who their corner 2 is, to be frank. I'll look that up while Shane vamps, but I know their slot corner is
Oh
Kindle
yeah,
Vildor, who is
yeah.
a little tiny dude who
He's
I
not
think,
very big. I
yeah,
feel like if you're the Bears, I assume that they're going to put Johnson on Johnson and have
yes,
Jalen Johnson on
quite,
Deontay. I assume just because they don't want to have Deontay just wreck them because that they
yeah,
know that's what we're
definitely.
trying to do with the passing game is let Johnson
Hmm.
just get open quickly or down the field. So I assume assuming he draws him most of the game, whoever their cornerback 2 is going to have to deal with either the Claypools of the world or Washington or whoever else.
Looking at this, I think they're gonna have to because Kindle Vildor is their corner too, and then their third corner is Duke Shelley, who is also like a nickel type.
Duke
So
Shelley, I feel like he's got to be 32 years old, is what I feel like.
I
Like,
he
is he? Isn't he older, or am I thinking of someone
no,
else?
I think you're thinking of someone else because he hasn't been around that long. He's only drafted in 2019.
Oh, I'm thinking of McManus. I think is his name. He played
Oh,
for them.
Sherrick McManus.
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay, there we
yeah.
go. I knew it was
Yeah.
somebody. I'm like,
Deep
somebody's
deep
old there.
cuts on Bears defensive backs here on around the Burgh.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I mean, I think they're gonna have to put Johnson on Claypool then because he's the
Maybe.
only corner with size. Like, I mean, if they want to put Duke Shelley or Kindle Vildor all 5'9" of them,
Please do. I mean, I
yeah,
know that that
this would be
Claypool
a
hasn't
game.
been.
This should be a Chase Claypool slot game
I sure
just
hope
all
so.
day.
We need to see more of this because, like I
Yeah.
said, we've talked about it a bunch of times. I just want to see this man run a seam route up the middle and tear
Hmm.
somebody apart because he can and he will.
Yeah,
Like
like
Ben just needs to be willing to throw it, and I just
like
don't know if that's going to happen.
if Eddie Jackson doesn't go and they can get Chase Claypool in the slot,
Yeah,
just spam that for days. Just keep
yeah,
hitting that matchup
because you
because
have to give them looks like if they're going to give you looks like that, make them pay for it until they stop doing it.
hmm
Right?
yeah.
That's the one thing I think the offense needs to be better at is if they give you something, keep taking it until they stop giving it to
Hmm.
you. Because if you do try to get too cute with the passing game or try to do this or that, it's not working right now. Like you're not good enough to be doing that. You got to run the football and try to exploit matchups as best you
Yeah.
can and take it from there.
It is interesting because this defense with Sean Desai, their new defensive coordinator, he's kind of from that Fangio tree
Yeah,
that wants to run a lot of too high looks, quarters, and stuff. I mean, they do a lot of different coverage shells, but quarters primary, defend the pass first, and so like even with Akeem Hicks there and Eddie Goldman, who's a very good nose
yeah,
tackle,
he is.
I think the Steelers are probably gonna be like, okay, like with the way they're gonna run this defense, like we want to run the ball because they're gonna give us good looks with it, with how they are not putting safeties in the box.
Especially if Mac is out because he's always
Hmm.
been a very stout run
He's such
defender
a good
too at
run defender.
edge.
Yeah.
If he's out, that's going to make it even easier to try to attack
Hmm.
that. And if we
Hmm.
can, like this is again, I've said this every week since we kind of broke out against the Broncos. There's a game plan the Steelers need to fall back on if they can't get other things going, and it's going to be running the football and timely plays from Ben and other guys.
All right, so what's another matchup that you're looking at that either you're concerned about or think it really favors the Steelers?
I think as far as favoring the Steelers at this point, especially with Mac out, I think that this offensive line is going to be able to maybe have one of, if not their best games so far this year. I mean, obviously, I think so far the Broncos game has been their best,
I mean,
but
I think you could argue that like every game since the Broncos game has been their best game.
right, you could argue it for
Like
sure. But
they've been
like,
getting better
I,
across the board pretty much every game.
I think especially from an output standpoint, from a
Hmm.
production standpoint on the ground, we could see maybe it'll be hard to beat the Broncos game, but maybe close to that in terms of efficiency too,
Hmm.
and getting that going because without Mac out there, I don't think Hicks is the same player we talked about him. Goldman's a very good player, but I think you can focus on him if Hicks isn't tearing you apart.
Hmm.
And I don't trust Robert Quinn of the Robert Quinns of the world or anyone else to really be a consistent problem. He's a very streaky player, so he could
Big
go
time.
off.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is an opportunity where they could really start to put the gas on in the passing or in the rush game and try to get things going there again.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot, honestly, like across the board, I think the matchups favor the Steelers a lot in this
Yeah, they
game.
do.
Like the other one is the kind of flip sides. The Steelers' defensive line versus the Bears' offensive line, which has
That's
been
a big one. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, because like I mean, even if
yeah,
you just talk edges, like they've had a pretty much a rotating door at right tackle against T.J. Watt. That's gonna be rough. We saw what he did to a guy like Blake Hance, who's kind of that replacement level player. Like
yeah,
he's gonna eat him alive. And then on the other side, I think they're still starting Jason Peters at left tackle, which is
yeah. I mean,
remarkable to say the
I
least.
just can't believe he's in the NFL at this point. Like, no offense to Jason Peters, I mean, he's had a phenomenal career,
Yes,
but
100%.
at this point, he's out there just to be out there. Like, that's what this
Right.
is. Like, he's
With
not a positive impact.
with that being said, and I'm so glad this is on Monday night and not Sunday night because I don't know why, but Chris Collinsworth has a concerning love affair with Jason Peters, regardless of
Yeah,
how many holding
I've
calls he should be called for in every Sunday night football game I've ever watched where he plays. That's
I've
all he
heard
does. I
that
feel
from
like
him a lot. Yeah.
I feel like every time the Eagles were on Sunday Night Football, and it's like, oh my god, Jason Peters is the best left tackle in the NFL. And it's just okay. These are just holding plays. Like these should all be called for holding. Like this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But he is obviously limited athletically, and a guy like Highsmith should be able to exploit that.
Yeah, I'm hoping to see this could be a big game from
And
Highsmith,
and this
especially
isn't
if they
even to
focus.
get into Cam Hayward over. I mean, he's not gonna play over the A gap much, but their center Sam Mustafer is another replacement level player
Yeah,
that Cam
he's
should be
been
able to
rough.
eat alive.
Yeah, Fields could be in for a rough day, and like I feel like he definitely unlocked his legs a little bit more
Hmm.
last game for sure, which is something they're going to need from him if they want to be productive. But I think the biggest key too, like just looking at it from an overall standpoint, they have to force them to throw the football
Hmm.
because realistically, I mean, this is a team that's averaged over 150 yards per game rushing over the past 5 weeks.
Hmm.
A lot of that is Fields helping out in that regard, but Herbert's been great, obviously in replacement. It's just if they have to force them to have to if they want to move the football down the field, they have to force them to throw the ball, and that's where a rookie like Fields can get into trouble, especially if finally hoping some big turnover plays from the
Hmm.
Minkas of the world, or maybe Edmonds gets a couple big plays, whatever it is. That's what I'm looking to see from this defense finally.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think I think Fields is really like you were saying is really the X factor here, and that's why like I thought like guys like Minka and Devin Bush are really important in this game
Yeah,
because
for sure.
we've talked a lot about Minka and like he had kind of he had the pass breakup on Landry to to get the ball back, and
Yeah.
then um Bush had that one bad play that led to a touchdown, but he's been pretty good as against the run. But I think they're going to use him a lot as kind of the QB spy, given his ability to roam sideline to sideline. And then Minka's going to need to be able to, Minka needs to be able to get like a deep interception this
Yeah,
game by
he
kind
needs
of
to be able to
fooling
erase.
Fields.
He needs to erase the backings. If they, like I said, with Mooney especially, if he can get free down the field, Fields, unlike the other quarterbacks he's played with so far, can hit him and stride down the football field if he has
Hmm.
time. So
Yeah.
making sure we have that type of stuff covered up, which has been an issue at times, obviously.
Hmm.
Having Minka play more of the traditional free safety role, I think, is going to be very important in
Yeah.
a game like this. So
Yeah, definitely. And I'll say this about Khalil Herbert. He's killed me and my personal fan in the last few seasons because in 2019 he was instrumental in Kansas's demolishing of Boston College, and in 2020 when he transferred to Virginia Tech, he was also instrumental to them killing Boston College.
so you've
So
had to deal with him a
so
lot.
he's on in 3 years in three different teams. He's really been the bane of my existence. So I'm hoping
Right.
they can finally get this turned around
Right.
for my sake.
Right.
All right, so we'll get to our predictions now. Steelers are right now are favored by 6.5. The over/under is 40. That's at least the last time I saw it.
Mhm.
Shane, let's hear your predictions for this game.
Well, I'm going to go 24-14.
The over/under is
Just
down to 39,
39.
apparently.
So I'm
So
still under there, but 24-14 I feel like is a good
okay,
score.
All right.
Obviously, the Steelers winning. So
I'll say this, and this has been talked about a lot. The Bears have been very good against Mike Tomlin. I don't think he's ever beaten the Bears. It's one of two. He's never beaten the Saints.
Yeah.
He's never beaten the Bears.
Well, this has got to
Despite
be a game to
this
rectify
is the
that.
unstoppable force versus the immovable object, because you have
Right.
Mike Tomlin can't beat the Bears, but Mike Tomlin is like awesome on Monday nights.
Yeah, I feel like this is the. I mean,
So
if there was
something's got
ever
to
a game
give.
for it to give, I assume
And
it's going to
color rush
be.
So
Yeah.
So now you kind of got two on the beat the Bears and really one on the not beat the Bears. So
Exactly. So
yeah,
I'm feeling
but
pretty good about it.
and I will say this, I was listening to an interview with Mitchell Schwartz, and he was saying, I don't really believe trap games exist in the NFL, but let down games do. And
Yeah,
so
there's a
I think the
difference.
Steelers are in a bit of a danger of that, coming off a big emotional, physical win of the Browns last week. So they could be kind of in a bad spot for that. But I think because this game is on Monday night, color rush, I think,
It's going to be easy to get up for this game. I feel like for sure.
Exactly. So with that, I have the Steelers winning 20-13. So also the under, a little bit less scoring. I really kind of am hoping they finally get of the big, I guess another big like defensive touch or defensive turnover, ideally a score or at least leading to a score quickly. So those are our predictions. Both Steelers wins. I guess we were both right last week as well.
Yeah,
Were we not? All
surprisingly.
right.
It's been pretty hard to come
All right.
by. But yeah, we've been. Like you
Yeah.
said, we were not surprised by the record so far. It's more so
Yeah.
the teams that they've beaten and not beaten. So
Yeah.
I mean, as long as it works
And
out.
now those losses are looking pretty good.
Honestly, yeah, that's the crazy thing about it is like looking like we figured we beat the Bengals just because they're the Bengals. We've been proved otherwise, at least when they played us at least, and we'll see how things end with them. But they definitely were rolling really hard going into last week, so we'll see what happens with that. But
Absolutely. All right, so that'll do it for us. We'll be back, I think, on probably Tuesday night.
yeah, most
Because we're probably
likely.
not going to record or broadcast the night of the game. So we'll be back on Tuesday night, and we'll be sending out the promo for that. So we'll be live on Twitch, on YouTube, on Twitter, on all of wherever you get your content. We'll be there.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, Shane, let the people know where they can find you and your work.
Yep, find me at Shane Kubis on Twitter, and find my writing, which unfortunately has slowed down. I'm definitely busy right now with my actual day job, not this. So
Yeah,
trying
sadly,
to
we
get
don't
more
get
stuff like
paid to
that.
do this yet.
Yeah, not yet. I mean, we're working on it, but for now, definitely mostly the podcast. Want to definitely follow ATB Steelers on Twitter as well. I'm hoping to have some more stuff tweeted from that account. It's been kind of rough going, but we're going to try to get more stuff out there too.
Awesome. Totally agree with that. And I'm at Mitchell T. Wolf, WOLFE on Twitter. Make sure you're following us around the block, Steelers ATB on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, all the platforms. We thank you for tuning in to this episode, and we hope to have you back next time.